Radio.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yes, indeed. You're very welcome along to OTB AM, the sports breakfast show from Off the Ball on this Friday morning. As always, Adrian with you from here and Owen with you from there. Owen, how are you getting on?
Very well, Adrian. Any crack?
Very little. Nice Friday morning. Like, you take the small things, don't you? I found that actually the capacity to better appreciate small things has been one of the things over the last 3 weeks.
100%. Whether it is delving into the various recipes of banana bread, or actually appreciating what exercise does for you, or actually what switching off does to you, everything is heightened, and that includes the small good things that are going on at the moment. Of course, everything being heightened works in negative ways as well. But I think you're right, actually. Yeah, there's a greater appreciation for everything. Sensitivity is higher than ever, and of course that can help in positive little things as well.
What's the problem with banana bread?
Yeah, this is everybody's been cooking banana bread. I think Ger indulged in banana bread over the course of last weekend. I think last weekend was the weekend to do it. This weekend there may be a new trend in town.
Scones maybe, or something like that, yeah.
Possibly. Like, that's the reason why all the flour has been taken from shops and stuff over the last couple of weeks. But apparently the stocks are replenishing nicely for flour. So now's your chance, Adrian, if you're looking to stock up and make some bread. Like, I was considering myself doing a bit of baking, but I'm not quite sure what to make. Like, banana bread seems like a good idea because it's sweet and it's kind of healthy as well. You don't want to be making a big cream cake if you're not going to get out and about and actually work it off. So I don't know. I think that's perhaps why people have gone for banana bread, because it's the happy medium between sweet and something that's not ridiculously unhealthy for you.
There's no reflection on my wife, who's a wonderful cook and etc. But she made banana bread, and I think that it might be easy. I think it was the main takeaway that I had, because that was my main takeaway, and let's maybe not go any deeper than that. But and I made scones on. I did make scones about a week or 10 days ago. A great thing to do with the kids, by the way. They're like really mad keen to get involved. You want to get their hands well washed, obviously, before you get into that. And I did cheat a little bit as well, because I bought there's an Oddlums bag that you can get, which is pre-mix, so you don't have to go through all the hassle. There's still a little bit of stuff to be done, like kneading and flouring and all that sort of stuff. But they taste sweet afterwards is the only thing. When you made them yourself, they taste great. Yeah.
Like, any photograph, any actual evidence of these scones?
I do, actually, yeah. I will get that before we get off air today on, just because I know you're doubting me, and it's fair enough. It's fair enough. But like you said, you do need to sort of, when you're getting involved in that kind of stuff, you need to work it off. And go on.
Yeah, sorry, just before we get into that, I think you might have stumbled onto a great new idea for OTB here, perhaps hashtag GBBOTB or something like this, where we've got the great OTB bake off or something like that, and compare your scones with one another is what I say.
GIBTOTB.
Yeah, something like that. We can work on that over the course of the weekend.
So anyway, what the clunky segue I was trying to get there on was that we're obviously doing the Off the Couch series. I think people will be familiar with it if they've been watching us over the last couple of weeks, where we've had a range of different people jump on board and give us a 2, 3, sometimes a little bit more than that workout. So a bit of guidance as to what you might be able to do around your gaff with very little equipment. We've Claire Cryan coming on a little bit later on the show, who's an Irish Olympic-hopeful diver, and she's got a good session going on. You will need a skipping rope for that one. But the gauntlet was laid down to me last night on. It was laid down to the both of us, actually. It should be rightly pointed out. Not all of us stepped up to the plate, but I was there for the team to do one of the workouts last night. So I chose Eric Donovan's workout of just over about a week ago, I think, or thereabouts. Because I kind of thought that, like, I'd be of that sort of boxing mentality, as you know. I'd be very much along that sort of line. I thought it'd be a workout that'd be suited to me. I was taking a little bit of footage of it as well, so we can maybe show you a little bit of what was going on in my kids' playroom last night. It was difficult. It's a good workout. I spent a lot of time looking at it, thinking, This is pretty straightforward. I'm well able for this thing. This is not something that's going to overly challenge me. It was one of the main things that I thought before doing it on, obviously, and then obviously got stuck into it. As you can see here, there's a few treats along the way. Some treats maybe before I even started. That one there, that's the skaters, as he called it. And I kind of thought, oh, that's easy. And then you do a bit of a jump every 5 times. But it's easy probably the first time. And the mountain climber here, they're not bad. All of them are not bad the first time. And then they start to grind and grind and grind. And also in my head, you can see the state of me doing this stuff. In my head, I was Eric Donovan.
Yeah, you're it's clearly pushing you. I like the way you're wearing the Mayo shorts from the Croke Park game a couple of years ago as well. I get good use out of them as well. But it's clearly having its effect. It's clearly doing the job. And like, are you doing the Eric Donovan level of rests and reps and going at the same intensity that he suggested?
Yeah, it's a good question. So his whole thing was you do his 50-20, he called it. Do you remember that? He was like, do 50 seconds of exercise and then you take a 20-second break and away you go. I was kind of more doing sort of 50-60 at the very least, maybe even at times a little bit more than that. But it was a tough enough workout. Like, so you do your star jumps to begin with, you sort of ease into it, nice, fairly straightforward. You're into your press ups, as you can see there. After that, at some point, the mountain climber was the second one. The high knees was the third one. The press ups, and like, I was actually astonished that I was able to do more than 2 press ups. You could see my technique there at times. There wasn't a lot of dip going on. Into the skaters, and then the squats to round up, and like, definitely watched Eric Donovan's piece and thought, not bad. I think if I wanted to, I could probably do that pretty handily. But he was saying it was a 7-minute workout. It was taking me 9-10 minutes to do each part of it. Yeah.
So you shave 2 minutes off that, and it becomes extremely intense at that point, I'd imagine. For somebody who's just starting out on the home workouts, let's not forget.
I mean, you say starting out in some sort of an insinuation that this is going to continue. Let's wait and see on that one. The thing that I was thinking was that, like, we have such an array of different people that have taken this thing on, that there's probably a workout there for everybody. Like, that one wasn't bad, and actually, if I was to go back, I probably will go back and do that one again, because it does. He's obviously mapped it out in a way that tests your different muscles as you work through it. I'm just not sure I'm going back.
Yeah, I was just saying, in terms of what actually suits you. Like, we're both basically professional swimmers, Adrian. So, like, actually home workouts and stuff like that, it doesn't really fit with our chosen discipline, our vocation in our sporting life, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, today's Off the Couch guest is going to be Claire Cryan, and on her Twitter account, she's been posting videos of her home workouts, which look complicated. I'm not going to lie. Could be the next level up for people who've been following Off the Couch and getting through the videos and the lunchtime workouts pretty easily. That's been her own personal Twitter account. She may actually simplify it for the likes of you and I. I do know, as you said, that a skipping rope may be involved. I can skip, but perhaps she's going to actually ask us to do double jumps over the rope, or whatever you call that.
Yeah, it's anyway. Look, I gave it a go last night. I took him for the team. I don't know that I'm going to be seating out and Off the Couch on anytime soon, I have to say, but it was good. I did it about 9:30 last night. Probably got the heart rate up a little bit too much at a time where I should be thinking about going to bed, but a few of those ginger nuts, Peppa Pig jellies, and some of the Pringles, like, it's the ultimate thing to offset doing some exercise.
Peppa Pig jellies, any use?
Yeah, they're not bad. Yeah, those ones particularly, actually, probably not great, but there are other ones that are. I'm a bit of a connoisseur of jellies now. You'd sort of lose your way with jellies after you're a kid until you have kids, and then suddenly you're back into it and you're like, God, what
jellies
underrated treat, like. Overrated
in general. Yeah, like you might be partial to a wine gum here or there, which is clearly the most superior of all the jellies that exist in the world, but generally they're terrible in comparison to chocolate and or crisps and or biscuits. And, like, in terms of the junk food hierarchy, jellies are at the very, very bottom, no question about it.
That's unfortunately the incorrect answer on. It's the wine gums, okay. Natural jellies, have you had them?
Sorry, yes, they would be number one. They're the natural confectionery company, not national confectionery company. But if we were to nationalize one company, I'm sure confectionery people would probably pick them. Yeah, actually, that'd be true. But they're still, delicious. In general, they're the best of a bad bunch.
Wow, God, scathing on Jelly's Owen Shane. What a hot take to kick off Friday's OTB AM. We do want to hear from you if you're out and about today, wherever it is, or if you're at home, which is where you should be. We do want to hear from you this morning. 087 9180 180 if you want to get in contact with us between now and about 9:30. We have a stack show, as you might imagine. And also, we're up on Twitter. If you've taken on any of our off the couch challenges, by the way, and you haven't had to embarrass yourself like I have by having to record it, please do get in contact with us because we'd love to hear from you if you've taken that on and it's been some use, or you have any recommendations for others. Please do send those through to us. Right, it's 7:40 on this Friday morning. A very good morning to you. Adrian and Owen with you. A little bit of a flavour of what's happening in the world of sport this morning. Golf to begin with. And the former European Ryder Cup captain Paul McGinley says that this year's competition will happen behind closed doors, is his take on that. Padraig Harrington due to lead Europe, of course, into battle against America at Whistling Straits in September. The Masters and the US PGA have both been postponed until later in the year. The Open likely to follow suit. But McGinley was in conversation with Golf Weekly here yesterday, and he said that even if sport can resume later in the year, travel restrictions obviously are likely to mean that it does so with no fans present. So that's from the golf. In football, leagues across Europe have been formally asked not to abandon their seasons as a result of the coronavirus shutdown. That's the recommendation coming there. Belgian Pro League chiefs will ask a General Assembly this month to end their season prematurely, with current leaders Bruges declared the champions. But a joint letter from UEFA, the European Club Association, and the European Leagues body saying that they're formulating a plan to see the seasons completed. So what that will look like in terms of each league, obviously, we shall see the PFA, the Professional Footballers Association in England, saying that it fully accepts that players will have to be flexible, meanwhile, and share the financial burden of the coronavirus outbreak. They're certainly saying that. Their actions have gone slightly counter to that so far. We'll give you more detail on that in just a few minutes. And finally, in the World Gaelic Games, the former Armagh footballer Marianne McGuinness says that she's recovering from COVID-19. The 2012 Intermediate All-Ireland winner contracted the virus last week while working at Cavan General Hospital. She says her initial symptoms saw her feel sick and insanely tired. The 34-year-old was due to be on physio duties for this weekend's cancelled ladies football all-star trip, but says that she's only 70 to 80% recovered. So we wish Marion the very best with that. So at 7:42 on this Friday morning, we've lots coming your way over the next little while. We will tell you about what's coming up on the show this morning. We have the sports page in just a couple of moments' time. Lockdown, lowdown, that's been coming your way every day over the last 2 or 3 weeks, just about 8 o'clock or thereabouts. Sunderland TIl I Die. I don't know if you've been following the latest documentary from Netflix. It's season 2, of course, of following the trials and tribulations of Sunderland AFC. That's coming your way at about 8:15. Myself and Owen and Kieran Bradley as well. And then after that, Alan Quinlan's going to join us live in the line, where we've plenty to get into. Eddie Jones signed a new contract, and there's some interesting stuff. We need more Eddie Jones in our lives, I think, is the short story there. Interesting stuff to say from him. Johnny Sexton obviously confirming that his captaincy initial agreement anyway was for just 1 year on the show yesterday. Get Quinny's thoughts on that. And also he selected his World 15. So we're putting it through the rigour to see exactly, to get him to explain his selections there. Off the couch with Claire Cryan, that's coming your way at 10 to 9. And we've a crappy quiz coming your way just after 9 o'clock. So that's a bit of a sense of what's happening there. But right now, time for the sports page.
OTB AM.
Right, we're going to start with offtheball.com for you this morning, where John Giles, there's plenty up there, but including John Giles on the show with Nathan last night, as he is every Thursday, selecting his Manchester United all-time 11. I don't know if you were following any of this on, but an interesting selection, as it was always going to be. The midfield area, obviously one of the most hotly contested, as you might have imagined. It's probably better to some of the players who haven't made John Giles' cut. Ryan Giggs, Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, Brian Robson, Wayne Rooney, I think, was one of the ones, him and Robson, that he really agonised over. And Ruud van Nistelrooy, all of them left out of John Giles' all-time. Well, not all-time quite. It was like since 1965, I think, was the parameters that he put on it, his all-time 11. Like a thankless task.
Yeah, well, like John Giles is the one man who could put parameters on something like since 1965. We often do that. It's like, oh, we've got to pick the best players since the 60s. So we haven't a clue about the first 20, 30 years of it, realistically. Like, we can watch as much video back, but Giles would be able to give us a very, very accurate representation of the actual best 11. So you'd almost take his selections as gospel. I'd throw Rio Ferdinand in there as players that are absent and are conspicuous by their absence. But then again, I'd always have rated Vidic. It was Vidic and Stam he went for, right?
Yes, yeah. And I think that was actually one of the more contentious ones, that maybe because you got two hard men in there, maybe there was room for somebody who was a little bit better on the ball. Maybe Ferdinand ticks that box.
Yeah, maybe. But I think outside of that, like, great to see Dennis Irwin make it. Roy Keane is always going to make it. And Bobby Charlton, Dennis Law. Like, it's hard to, when you look at Law's statistics, when you look at Charlton's statistics, it's hard to argue against them. When you hear about Giles then wax lyrical about them, it's even harder to ignore them. And, like, I think he's probably got it closest spot on with this team. And I would just love to see more of these from John Giles, more of his greatest team since 1965. And so what is it? It's Law and Best up front. With Charlton behind him, Keane.
You put me on the spot here now. Let me grab it here. Yeah, Keane is definitely in there.
I've got it up here. So Best in Law up front. Oh, Ronaldo, of course. Sorry, on one flank. Paul Scholes, Bobby Charlton, Roy Keane, Tony Dunn. Tony Dunn is the one now. In fairness, in a left back. So that's the one person that, like, a lot of us, when we go back, we can't actually say, great player, Tony Dunn, whereas a lot of people will be like, Jaap Stam, Vidic 100% deserve to make it. And then Dennis Irwin takes the other full-back spot with Schmeichel in goals. So it's a team that crosses all the ages, really. And, like, I think, I was listening to Billy Giles last night, he was saying that his opinion on Ronaldo definitely went on a journey through the years. And I think that was definitely the case with the television panel at the time, that Ronaldo wasn't exactly, he didn't get highly rated at the time, maybe because of a perceived work ethic, but actually what that work ethic was, it was certainly there. It was just an attitude towards him trying to do it all himself quite often. And once we realized that this guy was actually one of the greatest players of all time, perhaps the greatest player of all time when it comes to pure statistical output, then there's no way you can't include him in your team.
Yeah, there was all that sort of flash and flare as well that may not have gone down particularly well with John and his cohorts as well. So yeah, the Ronaldo selection, because he's gone on to have such an amazing career elsewhere, obviously afterwards, was, I don't know, contentious is probably overstating it, but certainly creating debate, as it has done plenty of online. So more, as you say, Owen, more of that hopefully to come from John over the next while. In the newspapers, the Irish Independent kicked things off. Lovely photograph here of Keith Earls and his kids. He's on a bit of a fundraising drive. Really another great icon, I would go as far as to say, of Irish sport. He's certainly turning into it. Keith Earls, leading by example, helping to fundraise for Bernardo's, he's auctioning his jersey from the Ireland win over New Zealand in Dublin in 2018. So there's a GoFundMe page there that you can go and check out on Keith's Twitter feed. I'm sure there's other social handles as well. Sam Wallace writes about the Premier League stars snubbing plea to make wage sacrifice. This is one that dominates a lot of the back pages today, as you well might have imagined. They've been a bit watery, it has to be said, in terms of their appetite to take any kind of a pay cut, and Sam Wallace has that story there. And David Kelly takes up that story from OTB AM yesterday, that Johnny Sexton revealing that his captaincy was agreed as a one-season thing, speculation in the end of then that James Ryan could come in as early as November, and everybody's talking about him as the anointed one, obviously. But I mean, it could just as easily be that Johnny Sexton and Andy Farrell have had that agreement for 1 year on, and that it's been left loose by design. Makes total sense to me that Andy Farrell knew he was somebody that he could rely on. He knew that he was largely going to be somebody who was going to be in the team, has all the attributes of a captain, and like, we'll try this for a year and see how it goes. And like, if it works out, we might go another year, and who knows where Johnny Sexton will be after that year. But for the minute, I mean, I don't know that anointing James Ryan as the one that's definitely going to come in 3 months or whenever the season starts again. I'm not sure that's exactly right. Sexton could go on and do this for another 18 months potentially, or more.
Also, the suggestion as well that James Ryan is automatically second choice and is automatically vice captain to Johnny Sexton. I know he is a vice captain, and he would certainly be in the mix for the role where Johnny Sexton to not be captain in a year's time. But there are other contenders in the mix. Certainly, you'd have Henshaw and Ringrose. You'd have potentially Tyke Furlong. Like there are other options outside. Like James Ryan is it's so easy to say that he's going to become the next captain because he's got captaincy material all over him. And I think he just kind of echoes the likes of Paul O'Connell in what he can bring to the table from a leadership perspective, in terms of hearing him talk, in terms of like hearing the way his attitude on the pitch and how quickly he just seems like a mainstay of every team he's played in, and they've all been excellent teams. And then obviously he's just an unbelievable player, world class, and like he is the outstanding candidate, the outstanding young candidate. But I just don't think it's as clear cut that if Sexton doesn't get it, James Ryan automatically steps up. That being said, if I was picking it, I would certainly give it to James Ryan, and almost would have been persuaded to give it to him this year. I've got the Irish Examiner this morning. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go for it.
The Irish Examiner leads with the rugby as well. Keatley happy to kick on in Italy, writes Simon Lewis. So Ian Keatley chatting to the media across the newspapers this morning. Thankfully, from his perspective, he got the opportunity to go home to Ireland during the last round of the Guinness Pro 14, or one of the last rounds of the Guinness Pro 14, which means he's not stuck in Italy as everything is breaking out, and did break out there. Thankfully, of course, it seems, and I say it seems, the figures have started to plateau in Italy at the moment, and he says that he's happy to kick on there, as the headline suggests, to go back there for next season, or if this season find some sort of safe room to conclude. For one autumn, knockout hurling could be glorious, is the other headline there in the Irish Examiner. That's Anthony Daly talking about an old-fashioned knockout competition to decide the destination of Liam McCarthy this autumn. Jones wants an England that plays perfect game. That's Eddie Jones talking about his new contract. And some players have played their last game. This is in relation to rugby as well. So this is Isa Nasewa, Brendan O'Brien writing about him, and logging into his Facebook account earlier this week and shared a rare but heartfelt post. It was addressed to all the rugby community and asked that players everywhere spare a thought for your teammates and brothers who will retire at the end of the season and may in fact have played their last game of professional rugby. It's a good point. Those people who are kind of seeing the clock tick away on their career and may not be able to get back onto the pitch again. Unfortunately, it's a situation where players may have played their last game or may struggle to get a contract again. And in some sports, rugby might be one of these. We just don't know how the sport is going to be financially hit in the long term.
Yeah, I love that. For one autumn only, knockout hurling could be glorious. By the way, it's absolutely spot on. Like, in the uncertainty of everything that's going to go on, I'm sure there'll be limited games, and the idea of just going back to like that sort of one-off game where probably teams and players aren't going to be at their full peak of match fitness anyway until you get very, very deep into the championship. I think, bring it on. I mean, I'm probably saying that in the context of just bring any sport on, obviously, at some point when it's safe to do so. But yeah, geez, the idea of knockout hurling really appeals. The Irish Times, David Conn and Paul McKenna is here. Premier League players may be willing to pay wages of club staff, says the PFA in England. Players, it seems here on this, we might as well get into this story here because it is in a lot of the newspapers here this morning. Like, effectively what's happening is players here are trying to get out of town with the least possible bruises, right? The idea of paying club staff is just so totally bizarre to me. Like, it's nothing to do with them. If they're offering that forward as some sort of a fig leaf for, well, look at us taking a bit of a hit here to pay what, let's face it, compared to the wages that they're on, will be a paltry sum. And if they're willing to do that, then just take the pay cut, I would say. It's a very complicated thing in that I think we're all trying to reach for some conclusion that fits all, and there isn't one, because even in the Premier League, the state of the finances of clubs, you might have a Manchester City who are well able to continue to pay their players, possibly, over the duration of it, and not have to furlough them or furlough any of them. Any of their staff, and then you'll have other clubs that will not be a realistic ambition for them. But I really do think the idea of them paying the regular club staff is ludicrous. It's not their position. It's nothing to do with them.
So your point is that the players shouldn't be doing this.
It's absolutely that if they want to take a cut, then do that and let the club sort it. But it's ludicrous to suggest that the players will be paying club staff.
Yeah, that direct sort of train of thought probably will be a bit of a strange one, all right. But like, I don't know. There seems to be, like, who was it yesterday? Dominic Raab coming out and criticising the Premier League footballers for not taking the pay cut, and like Jonathan Walters had a thread up yesterday, which I think reflects what a few people would have been thinking. Like, nobody has nobody will have any sympathy for Premier League players if they have their wages cut. I think that needs to be put out there straight away. They are extravagantly paid. A lot of them are overpaid. Nobody is going to have any issue with that, especially in the context of a lot of people who are watching this morning, listening this morning, who may have lost their jobs, who may have had pay cuts, but particularly those who've lost their jobs. There won't be a whole pile of sympathy there. But the logic that you've got government officials coming out saying the Premier League need to come out and cut players' wages, like, why is this such a dominant part of the agenda for the government? How will they benefit from the cut in the wages here? Like, where will the money actually go towards funneling money into the NHS? Is there going to be a restriction placed on wage cuts that actually the money that the clubs claw back perhaps goes directly towards tax? Like, that would be something that we might be interested in, to see that this could actually be done for the wider benefit of the United Kingdom here and their health service, for example, or frontline workers in general. That it's a situation where if you cut players' wages, it goes back into the club. What is the club then going to do with that? Well, do they just pocket the money and just make sure that their turnover is still the same as it was as last year? Now, one positive step they could take is certainly pay their off-pitch staff a better wage if they have had their wages cut, and they could perhaps maintain their full wages while the players take a bit of a wage cut but still get extravagantly paid. Like, is it slightly populist to be standing on a pulpit and saying cut the Premier League players' wages? Because, of course, in the regular world we're used to living in, of course they're overpaid. But is that the actual solution to an issue out here? I'm not sure it is. I'd just be keen to see if there is some system, some way of working this, that if you are going to dock and take money from Premier League players, that it leads to some positive for someone somewhere, and it doesn't just increase the coffers of, say, an already multi-billionaire owner of a Premier League club.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think that there's a massive aspect of this that's a PR battle, and we had Matt Hancock, who's the British Health Secretary, coming out and demanding that Premier League players do their bit. Like, that's
it was Hancock, not Rab. My apologies.
Yeah, but it's just, look at it. It's nonsense. Like, and the idea of a Conservative government, if it was anybody apart from the football industry, they obviously have a very long track record of supporting wealthy people in the UK, as opposed to the working class. And I don't mean business people, I mean wealthy people by whatever means. And so, yeah, slightly at odds with sort of a long track record of from the Conservatives, it has to be said. But I do suspect if it was anything other than the football industry, they'd be keeping stum. But yeah, maybe some of it does go back into tax, and maybe that's fair enough. But it has to be taken on a club by club basis. The PFA, I know last week, had come out and said they wanted to look at the finances of clubs to see exactly what's going on here. I think there's an element of that's fine, that actually they do need to pick through how capable clubs are of paying wage bills. But I think that whatever rule is brought in, if clubs are going to furlough staff, then they have to furlough staff. That's the way it works. You can't say there's one rule for the players over here and another rule for general club staff. It just doesn't work. You mentioned John Walters he some interesting things to say on the debate yesterday. He says, what contributes more to the government, the NHS and the police, etc.? A Premier League player taking a pay cut that stays with the club's owners, are paying more than 45% tax through PAYE on a large salary which goes directly to the government, he asks. Let's take a look at the average Premier League player. So it goes into some of the maths. About a 3 million a year, 1.4 million goes directly to tax, and then he obviously applies all the cuts, and you're left with a very small sum that ends up going back in tax to the government. He says, how about the government asks certain people who own airlines and worth billions to start paying tax, or the sports people who are tax exiles? Now, what about the bankers? The majority of players I know give a lot of money to charities and help communities. He said, sit back and take a look at exactly how much is contributed to the government and economy through their wages and taxes. Everyone has an opinion on what they should earn, but don't forget what they contribute. Look, there's an element of that's fine, but that's probably more of a point for, when the economy is fine and everything is trucking along as it should do, and we don't have the uncertainty that we have at the minute. But obviously there are clubs that are facing absolute financial ruin by this. And I'm sure that there are those in the Premier League that are in the same boat. So I don't know that the players just sitting tight and saying, well, look, we'll just continue to take the same wages we've always gotten because we're paying a large chunk of it on tax, is really going to get this done.
Well, listen, if a club is in trouble, Adrian, it's pretty simple. You dock your players' wages because they're the biggest earners at the club. My point is that there's when you think of the extravagantly paid Premier League players, a lot of them are at clubs that are going to be okay because they have enough cash at the very top. So that's what I'm focusing on. Like, of course, when you look at potentially some of the bottom clubs in the Premier League, like say, like if you look at Brighton, for example, and you look at wage cuts there, and you look at Eddie Howe at Bournemouth taking a wage cut there, they are clubs that obviously work more off their turnover and trying to keep the head above water and trying to just be able to compete with the top 12, 15 clubs in the Premier League. Of course, in that case, you would then have to look at the players. And certainly in the Championship, you'd have to look at docking wages from the players, because everybody needs to row in behind a business that is very, very mortal at this time. And a Championship club is mortal at the moment. Like the clubs will sink. And if you go down the divisions in the England, there's even more of a nature about them that could go down as well and could hit the rocks big time. So it's a contradiction. Like you'd always like to see the biggest earners have to take a bit of a hit, but as it turns out, the biggest earners are at the most invincible clubs. So I don't know what the solution is there.
No, and anyway, the last point on it for me is they're losing the PR battle big time. Like, they really need to consider that. I think that in a way that who knows what happens with Cheltenham, right, for the years ahead, in that there are consequences to be had from that we haven't even imagined, I'm assuming, yet. But certainly in terms of an ongoing concern for that, or for maybe Premier League players are slightly less worried about it, that everybody forgets about it a week later, I'm not sure, but they are at the minute, I think, losing that PR battle big time. Just a couple of other bits on the football from the Irish Times this morning. Health official says decision to hold Liverpool Atletico game was wrong. This is David Kahn making the point that it's not hindsight, that everyone knew at the time and public health officials in Liverpool are now worried about the number of coronavirus cases in the city. Malky Clerkin writes, whole new ball game. Sport will be last duck in the row in return to normal. This is something we've touched on over the last couple of weeks, that he says for the people involved in running sport and managing its return, the one advantage they have is the inherent time lag. Sport was the first thing to go, not because it was expandable, but because it provided a rapid way of changing the thinking and habits of a massed chunk of humanity. The corollary will be true of its return. That's that thing that we've been speaking about over the last couple of weeks of it'll trickle back. It ain't coming back in one big cliff edge.
No, that's for sure. Like, it's something I think Malachy is articulating what a lot of people have been thinking over the last couple of days. It's not going to be something that we'll have a return to normality for quite some time, and like normality and normal have become these words that seem so unbelievably out of reach at the moment. They seem like it seems like hyperbole to use the word normal at the moment, because it seems like such an alien concept. But sport and normal, like, it could be next year, like before you actually have grounds that you can pack with people. Now the difference is we could go halfway towards that, and perhaps games behind closed doors, and like it'll be Premier League, it'll be NBA, perhaps. As you said, that trickle, and it'll be international sport, and hopefully then we'll actually have situations where we can pack League of Ireland and GA grounds again within 12 months. But who knows what the situation is going to be. The Mirror this morning, Adrian, the Irish Mirror, scrap it is the headline. This is Kevin De Bruyne pleading for end to season to save players from injury. This has been something obviously that has kind of got pushed under the carpet a small bit, hasn't really been spoken about really, is that, like, are you going to have a situation where if you follow through with this proposed plan by some people in the Premier League to actually play a summer league, then you're just rolling straight into another season, and the players' bodies are going to be under severe strain going into a season that is right before a European Championship. So that perhaps needs to be taken into account a little bit as well, especially because Euro 2021 is going to happen. There is definitely going to be a summer tournament next year. Shane's Open defence at risk. Meanwhile, the Open, another summer threat, another summer event under threat after the RNA admitted that the 2020 championship at Royal Sandwich could be postponed. So he could hold on to the claret jug for 2 years potentially. And Klopp tells stress heads, don't worry, be healthy, do your bits, club, do your bit, clubs are told. That's Gordon Taylor quoted there on the back of the Mirror. And Treviso aces on staying safe in 2 places.
Yeah, Gordon Taylor also in the Irish Daily Mail this morning defined PFA chief, no pay cuts for my stars, he says, in a line that will go down as something he's definitely have to go back on at some point. You would imagine talks with the Premier League, the EFL and the League Managers Association as well. No resolution other than the PFA saying, not on your Nelly are we taking a pay cut here. And Taylor, as you might imagine, really failing to read the room, it has to be said at this point, in a move that may well end up biting him and the PFA and the players in general in the ass at some point in the coming weeks. Kevin De Bruyne says, call off the season now. Hardly breaking exclusive news there. And Philip Lanigan, just an interesting one from an Irish point of view. The CPA chief, Michael Brodie, is behind the idea of easing back with club games rather than county. It's an interesting proposition. The only slight thing in it for me is that obviously in terms of the level of seamlessness of bringing back sport, clubs will be in a far less they'll be far less positioned, I suppose, than counties even, to be able to bring back whatever measures it is that'll be put in place. Like there might be testing at grounds or social distancing, whatever it is. It'll be a bit more ad hoc, I suppose, to put it mildly, at a club game than it would even be at a county game.
And even the idea that less people will be at a club game, therefore it'll be easier to practice social distancing. Maybe that's true, but a lot of planning needs to go into place for that. If you're just letting people in because there's going to be smaller capacities, like you're going to have people standing beside each other regardless. Like it doesn't matter if you've got 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. People will gather in clusters. The back page of the Irish Sun is play cut, so pay cut, MPs, tax threat and obscene wages, but PFA and Stars still dragging feet. If there is some sort of tax threat and if the UK are actually going to claw back some of the money from the extravagantly paid Premier League players, and you think fair enough, because that money you'd suspect is going to go towards vital services at the moment, and everybody could get behind that. And a 10 Son hero set for military service, so Youngmin Son is going to go back to South Korea and actually fulfill his military service that he needs to do. So he's going to be stationed on Jeju Island, it seems, for the next few weeks, and that has basically just doing it at the right time when he doesn't have any football to focus on. So he's going to go home and actually carry that out.
I've been jumping around the order here, so sorry about that. But the Irish Daily Star, excuse me, forget about the title. Excuse me, Jurgen Klopp tells Liverpool stars to focus on their families. He says it's more sense, again, from the Liverpool manager, and he may well be doing loads of different things behind the scenes to get the season back, but fair play to him, making all the right noises there. Eamon Zayed is using the break to learn guitar from Daddy O'Reilly. One of the biggest stories across the entire newspaper industry this morning. Paul Lennon, meanwhile, wonders about how, or if at all, the Irish club is going to get back into Europe this season, given all the delays. And Jeremy Cross writes about another meeting of the Premier League today, and as you might imagine, player wage bills again, top of the bill there.
The London Times this morning leads with quotes from Eddie Jones saying, I had to know I was still up to the job. He says that he delayed agreeing the contract extension with the RFU that was finally announced yesterday because he was not convinced that he was up to the job. He's got Simona Halep there pictured at Wimbledon last year. I'll be champion for 2 years. Hopefully we'll have a situation where if that's the Shane Lowry interview that needs to be done if the Open gets called off as well. I'll be champion for 2 years. Son heads for Korean Navy, as already mentioned. He's enlisted with the South Korean Navy this month. And players may go on furlough. A number of championship clubs are considering placing their players on furlough amid concerns that they could soon be struggling to pay their wage bills. That is the real threat facing championship clubs. I presume even the bottom clubs in the Premier League shouldn't have to go that far to actually be forced to do it, but they may need to do it anyway just to for tax reasons or whatever the UK are planning on doing over the next couple of days.
I'm going to skip ahead here to The Guardian. I can see us taking rugby to another level, says the ever-modest Eddie Jones. I said at the top, we need more Eddie Jones in our lives at the minute. So like a daily interview, I could get right behind that. He's obviously signed a new contract with RFU. A podcast. He should throw that up on Twitter, see if there's much of an appetite for it.
Absolutely, put up a poll, Eddie.
Absolutely unprecedented. Meanwhile, writes Sean Ingle here, the Olympic sports fear financial ruin because of pandemic, and we don't really know the true cost of this, of course. Some of the impact of it, I'm sure, will be in ways that we can't even imagine at the minute, but it'll play out, no doubt, over the coming weeks and months.
The Irish news then, finally, for me, McNaughton. COVID-19 will make us all appreciate the simple aspects of life. This is Terence McNaughton, who plans on deleting a number of WhatsApp groups from his mobile phone over the coming days and wants people to stop posting their good deeds on Facebook during the coronavirus lockdown. And no jumps racing in Britain until July. Jumps racing in Britain will remain on hold until the month of July, the British Horse Racing Authority has announced.
All right, it's almost 10:08 on this Friday morning. You can get in touch with us by whatever means you wish. This morning we do want to hear from you, and we've plenty more coming over the next while. It's, as I said, 10:08 on this Friday morning. Alan Quinlan is going to join us. We've got Ciara Bradley and Owen and myself along to talk season 2 of Sunderland TIl I Die. There's a crappy quiz coming your way a bit later on, and the Olympic-hopeful Clare Cryan is going to join us on the line to get you off the couch today. We're back with the lockdown lowdown straight after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB Sports Radio. Football never stops, and neither do we.
Don't shoot. Oh, he dinged it.
The Football Show is the only place to get the best analysis.
We've tried this way and we've been trying it for a long time, and it's just active process now.
Best interviews.
There was talk that you used to go commando when you played, and
Yeah, I did, yeah. I never wore pants. Still don't wear pants.
And best opinions and all things from across the pond and here in Ireland. Live every night from 9 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio.
I listen all the time.
Get OTB Sports Radio online at offtheball.com/radio or on your phone by downloading the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
All right, it's OTB AM, and it is the lockdown lowdown for you. A few pieces that myself and Owen and the crew have been picking out from around the interweb over the last few days. Here is Mark Ward, the former Meath footballer. He's in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I think at the minute. Pennsylvania it is. Surely not. Not from this distance. Boom! What an effort.
I definitely appreciate the people who are like doing the long build up before the effort at the moment, so they come out and they solo all the way to the camera. So I'm not sure if it's a situation where they're like, this is definitely not take 20, or they're trying to suggest that this is take 20, but I'm going to a hell of a lot of effort every time, so you better appreciate it. Either way, absolutely sensational effort from Mark Ward there. So where's that? That's in Pennsylvania somewhere?
Pennsylvania, yeah. He was saying that there wasn't too many, obviously, goalposts that he could out and have an old crack off, but like, it's the percentages of actually executing what he's attempted there are so minimal. I'm really not having the idea that he just went out and that was the first take. I mean, you could have been at that for 2 weeks. Genuinely could be at it for 2 weeks. Trying to achieve something like that. It's incredible.
Next up, we've got an image of Kevin Kilbane, which is one of the most automatically iconic doctored images since that image of Stalin with his associate that disappeared from the photo years afterwards. It's Gary Neville standing beside Kevin Kilbane. Kevin Kilbane on England under-20 duty with Gary Neville prior to playing for Ireland. That's Great Wall of China there. And then Kilbane quote tweeting it saying, "Good job you didn't copy me on in this pic." It's what could have been the sliding doors moment of Ireland's relationship with Kevin Kilbane, photographed right there in that photograph.
Yeah, I think only that Kevin Kilbane would have, like, whatever about sliding doors, would have taken his size 10s out and kicked that door down. I looked at it to begin with and I was like, oh, what's happening here? And then you just see what a badly photoshopped job it actually is. Poor old Kev. It's a good way to wind him up at these times. We were talking to Johnny Sexton yesterday, obviously, about sort of what you get up to when you're a professional rugby player and you've a lot of time in your hands and nowhere really to go to do it. It turns out it'd be pretty sweet time to be living on a farm in the vast expanses of South Africa, which is where CJ Stander has retreated himself to, and he's been doing a bit of tackle practice and sheep dodging. Is that the official expression of what this game is called? We might take a look at it here. CJ's been out around his farm. He's been getting a bit of tackle practice in there with Sean, the South African sheep. Do you know what? My main takeaway from this on looking at it, sheep are stupid, aren't they? Like, they're not that agile. Like, your man is mind made up, right? The sheep has, if we can maybe rerun it there, the sheep has his mind made up from about 10 seconds out what area he's going to hit. And no matter where CJ Stander ends up, that sheep ain't changing his mind.
But that's a very, very harsh appraisal of sheep, I think, Adrian. I think you're undervaluing the footwork and how nimble CJ Stander is as a back row. I think you got to give him credit rather than calling the sheep tick, to be honest. And like, I think what you actually see is that they lack the aggression of something like a goat. I think goats are actually far more aggressive. Like, I'm not sure, did you see that picture of the town in Wales over the course of the last couple of days. That's
Yes.
because everybody's inside their homes. All the goats have started to come down off the hills and into the town. That is a far more dangerous proposition. So if CJ Stander wants to ramp it up, level 1 is a sheep, then onto a ram, because of course they've got horns and can do severe damage to you if they catch you. And then goat, I would think, is actually the top level. That is the third boss. If you actually want to practice in your farm, that tends to have goats and sheep. That's just my take, but I think sheep everywhere are going to be absolutely sickened by your takedown of them this morning. They're not thick. They're actually quite smart animals and very cute as well. Underrated on the cute scale. Right, next up. Cathal Freeman at DC Freeman 11. Borrowing this idea from Jay Campbell 0104 on Twitter, he said, if this tweet gets 2,000 retweets, I'll run a marathon 42 kilometres while soloing a slitter around this patch of grass. I'll set up a fundraising page before doing it. All money raised will go to the Irish Cancer Society and the HSE for PPE, which is a great initiative. And it is going to happen, I'm afraid, Cathal. I think that's, what are we on, 1.8, 1.9 retweets this morning before coming on air anyway. Might well have crossed the 2,000 mark before we actually, in the last couple of minutes. I'll check that now here. But I'm not sure, did you see the other guy who actually did the marathon in his back garden?
No.
I shamefully actually tuned in for a while. 1.9 retweets, by the way, so he's almost there. I shamefully tuned in for a while to actually watch the live broadcast of him running around his garden. And I stayed for a good 10-15 minutes. It was, I don't know, there was something soothing about it. And I'm sure watching Cathal run around his back garden with a slitter will be an even better viewing experience. So you need to live stream it, Cathal. You need to get it live on YouTube. And great that all the proceeds are going to go to charity as well.
You really should have goggle boxed you watching your man doing the marathon in his back garden. Like, I can only imagine you there in your sort of semi-dotage watching this guy, this metronome going round and round, and you're sort of dozing off with your slippers on and just taking it handy.
Yeah, it's missed content opportunity. It definitely seemed easy for it. Like, he was going at a slower pace than most people who run a marathon, I would assume. And then he's also got to do the turns. And I think he was being extra careful about doing the turns because there's a lot of turns to do in a 6-metre garden if you want to run a full marathon.
You'd reverse it at some point, would you?
Well, he did reverse it in the 12-15 minutes that I was watching it anyway. But maybe I can go back and watch the full thing later on.
Yeah, you fell asleep at some point. Cavan Ladd was in touch on YouTube, and he says, in my experience, only a ram would charge at you. So I think he's saying that the sheep in that shot is actually a ram. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, that's probably correct. But like, I mean, it would be put up beyond the bounds possibility that like there could be angry sheep out there somewhere. Like, we don't know. We don't know that. But yeah,
well, I know they're all cute according to you. The last piece I'm going to leave you with, we're offering this up as possibly tweeted today from yesterday. Nathan had tweeted that it was interesting to see what the FAI will do now. He says it would have been difficult to dump Mick if he had won a June playoff, but with the game not until September at the earliest, surely it's time to just press on. But the Kenny era, says the latest in support of Stephen Kenny here. But Tony Chestnut, whatever you're having yourself there, has replied with, at the start of this group, if you had offered Mick a deferred playoff match behind closed doors in the middle of a global pandemic, he'd have bitten your bloody arm off.
Well, maybe he absolutely would, and I think he probably would at this point if he gets the opportunity to actually manage the team again. So, tweet of the day. I think it's fair to say poor Mick not going to get that chance potentially.
Yeah. We'll see. We've plenty to play out on that one as well. I'm sure the FAI have had very little to say during the week, and that's probably the right play for now. It's 8:17 on this Friday morning. We have gave the children of Ireland the chance to ask Brian O'Driscoll whatever they wanted on the OTB Kids takeover. You remember last week, and now it's time for our second takeover. Lots of interesting names, by the way, coming on this piece over the next few weeks. Mayo legend Lee Keegan is our next guest. It's a chance for all you kids out there to ask him anything you like to get involved. You can WhatsApp your questions on 0879 180 180. You can send in a video or a text. We'll take either. And we're encouraging you to be as ridiculous as you possibly can. The more ridiculous, the better. And we'll put those to Lee next week. So get involved, 0879 180 180. Right, we mentioned John Giles choosing his all-time Manchester United 11 a little bit earlier this morning. Check out the team on offtheball.com. First, here's how he chose his front three.
It's some choice. So which three did you go for?
I went for Ronaldo, Dennis Law and Georgie Best.
So no Wayne Rooney, their all-time leading scorer.
I know. I thought a lot of Rooney. The only thing I thought of Rooney, I thought he was marching to greatness, Nathan, when he got a knee injury. Remember he got a bad knee injury, he was out for a while. Anyway, that one stage in his career. Yeah. And I don't think he really marched on from there. He was very, very good. Very, very good. But I don't think he really marched on from there to become one of the greats.
There's a longevity, I suppose, to, well, both Giggs and Wayne Rooney into what they did with Manchester United. Ronaldo was there for, 6 seasons, I think it was, and by the end he was just scoring an insane amount of goals. He was getting towards the level he got to at Real Madrid. Is it all in what Ronaldo did in a United jersey, or is part of it influenced by the way he went on and the rest of his career flourished?
No, I'd say he did more than his share at United. Now, I was often critical of him when he was at Manchester United, because I always believed, Nathan, that for example, when anybody lost the ball, get it back and that. And he didn't do that. And I thought, no, this fella's not the real McCoy. But what I didn't realise about him is the only player that I ever saw or knew that could be out of the game for 15 minutes and didn't let it bother him. Do you know what I mean, Nathan?
Had the patience to wait for his chance.
Yeah, in other words, what he was going to do was score goals. And he did. But when I'd watch him and I'd say, look, he's not getting back, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. But he finished up scoring 2 goals. And we know what his goal-scoring record is now. But when I first saw him, I thought, no, he's too lazy, he's not in the game enough, he's not doing this and not doing it. But all he was interested in, and is still interested in my opinion, is scoring goals, which is the most important thing in a team.
Yeah.
So he was doing the most important things, but my attitude was he's not getting back, he's not doing this and he's not doing that. But obviously I've seen him now, he's been playing for a long time, and I can see why he doesn't do what I thought he should be doing, which is to wait and take his time and be patient and just score goals.
It's hard to be in any ways critical of him, and I know he was a totally different player, Wayne Rooney, and that he helped create so much more as well. But I think Rooney, in all his time at United, there were only 2 seasons where he scored over 20 Premier League goals. Was he a little bit too unselfish almost? Well,
he played deeper. You know, like that. Ronaldo stayed on the wing, one side or the other, most of the time. He'd get in the penalty box all the time, and he had a great nose, as I say, for goals. Absolutely a genius when it came to that. Rooney was a better all-round player in many ways. He could come deeper, he could get on the ball, he could make goals, he could score goals. You know, in my opinion, over the years, when you see Ronaldo, he very seldom makes a goal, Nathan. He's usually scoring them, and he scores loads of them, which makes him one of the great players, in my opinion, that I feel now. I didn't at the time. But in Rooney's case, I thought Rooney got a little bit complacent when he got to a certain age, having done what he did. He was always very good. I don't think he marched on to be great.
Yeah. Just before we
that's been hard on him. That's been harsh on him, you know. But that's what I felt about him. There was more in him, I think. At a certain age, when he was 27, 28, I thought he really was marching on to greatness, and I didn't quite see that. But he was a terrific player. And a terrific player for Manchester United.
We are very tight in time, so I just want a very quick word in your other 2 selections. Denis Law, who I think we spoke about recently, and funny enough, we had a text in earlier wondering if you rated George Best. Clearly you did.
Oh, Best was a genius. Best was a genius. I think he's the most gifted lad I've ever seen, Nathan, and that includes Messi and that.
Wow.
And top gift. George Best was the only player I could see be running down, dribbling with the ball, and cut inside with his right foot, and then go out and cut back inside with his left foot. He used to turn. That's how he used to turn the defenders inside out. I know Best was a genius, and he was probably the most gifted player I've ever seen. I mean, unfortunately, he lost his way, George. He had no protection. I feel sorry for him in that way. But an absolute genius playing. Oh, no, I had an awful lot of time for Georgie Best. I just wish he could have maintained it longer than he did. But at his best, at his peak, he was unbelievable.
Was he the type of player that when you were going up against him, and particularly say when you were with Leeds and he was at Manchester United and both teams were sort of at their peak, that you thought, if he's on it today, there's literally nothing we can do to stop him?
Yeah, but funny enough, Nathan, he very seldom played well against Leeds. We had a lad called Paul Reaney playing at right back who was very quick, very aggressive, and most of the time he kept Georgie down. That was just us. But we were a top team, as well. But Georgie, in my time against playing against me, didn't turn it on an awful lot against Leeds. But that was just as it was. But he turned it on against everybody else.
Yeah.
And he did. He played well against us at times, but not in the magical way that he could.
All right, John, we're out of time. Your all-time Manchester... Go on. Yeah, mention Dennis Law.
A quick one. The most dynamic player I ever played with or against. Absolutely, one of the greats, and he'd be sensational today, Nathan.
Right, it is OTB AM, the sports breakfast show from Off the Ball, and we're slowly but surely working our way through the various online movie box sets providers, and our latest stop is to Netflix's Sunderland TIl I Die.
My favourite player when I was growing up was Alan Quinlan, so my firstborn son, I decided to call Niall after Alan Quinlan.
Sunderland is a massive, massive footballing city.
And a shot blocked. Honeyman. Penalty.
The last 10, 12 years, we've been in the Premiership.
So penalty now to Sunderland. Chance to pull a goal back.
Unfortunately, it's just went wrong.
Another manager gone, another relegation. The problems run deep.
Let us pray for Sunderland Football Club and for our city.
Most people have seen season 1 of this. Season 2 has just been launched this week. And I'm delighted to say to pick through it are people at various stages of both seasons. Owen Sheehan, you're just started the entire thing, Owen, is that right?
Yeah, well, I was going to go straight in and do season 2 when this came out this week. I think one of the biggest regrets of my entire life is not getting on the bandwagon of season 1 when it initially came out. And there is too much. There's too much to get through at the moment to be able to have had time over the last couple of weeks to actually binge all of season 1. So I'm late to the party. We're going to have to trust the reviews of people like Kieran Bradley here to actually let us know what's happening in season 2.
Yeah, not having the biggest regret of his entire lifetime. Partly of Off the Ball. You've watched the entire thing.
Yeah, I've subjected myself to that. If the end of the world itself wasn't enough.
It's a fantastic television, though, right?
It's great TV. For people, most people have some awareness of it, right? The origins of it were that the previous owner, Ellis Short, and apologies for spoilers here, like we have just been saying before we went to air, it is a little bit like the Titanic. Everybody kind of knows, and actually in more ways than one. Everybody sort of knows how this thing ends up or where they're at the minute, or at least it doesn't take you much to find out. But the previous owner, Ellis Short, was wanting to shift the club off his hands for a long period of time and felt that making this behind-the-scenes documentary, the warts and all, would somehow make it a more attractive proposition for investors, which seems like such a flawed promise to begin with. And certainly when you look at the end product, Kieran, I can't imagine there was a huge amount of investors looking at it going, woof, now here's a proposition I need to get involved with.
Well, flawed premises are something you pretty much associate with Sunderland throughout their history, and it's something they've kind of completely excelled in before, and this is a situation they're at again. Yeah, I mean, like, it's fantastic. I'm honestly of the opinion that this is one of the best sports documentaries around, because on the one hand you've basically got like people trying to explain the concept of Sunderland as a city and as a club to essentially an American audience. And then on the other, you have football fans like ourselves who are just well versed in the situation with regards to the club and just seeing it from top to bottom as a complete shit show. So from the outset, I mean, you're introduced to Stuart Donald, who's the new owner, and the director Charlie Methven, who's this kind of golem of like Englishness. It's amazing. He's almost appeared out of the ground
in season 2.
In season 2, yeah, this is season 2. So yeah, I mean, it's fantastic, and really pretty much from the get-go, you've kind of got pretty mixed feelings towards them. Like, on the one hand, you're kind of really willing them to do as well as they possibly can, for the simple fact that, you know, the fans have been through a great deal over the last few years and just seen this kind of carousel of people come through with various intentions and skill sets, and now you just want them actually getting back to it. But also they're actually reasonably likable people. So I've really enjoyed it thus far, and yeah, I'd be interested to know how you lads are feeling about it too.
Well, we better get Owen's thoughts, I think, initially, because some of this is going to be totally lost on you, and you'll have no reference to anything to do with Sunderland, obviously, in the modern era, other than season 1, which was last season. So what are your impressions or your expectations having seen one episode of season 1?
I think that Is this like, okay, so we have to realize that everybody realizes that we're being filmed. That's a thing that we need to realize. Like, I think sometimes if a club is failing and they have cameras on them, we sometimes, as a viewer, almost forget that we're like, oh, they've completely let their guard down. But in actual fact, they probably haven't. That I do wonder if the whole awareness of the fans is something that is pushed forward a little bit too much by the club, by the manager, by the players sometimes. Like, I think in season 1, Simon Grayson is talking about the fans and saying, you know, they're working class people, they expect you to work hard at the very least, which seems like a very big thing to say on a PR front. It's a great thing to say, and it'll make your club look great on a PR front, and your fans will thank you for saying it. I just wonder if that's actually touching on reality. I just wonder, as things get more real, as the struggle gets more real for Sunderland throughout season 1, and they're just in a constant struggle come season 2, I'd imagine, does that actually disappear a little bit? That actually they don't care about the fans as much as they did, because success and climbing through the divisions is the only thing that motivates them anymore.
I would say with this, actually, this is one of the real positive elements to the two that are in there at the kind of, you know, the head of season 2. Like, they genuinely do seem to care. Like, whether that is on the fans' behalf is one thing, but genuinely from a kind of a personal pride and a collective pride, actually, for the city, they want the city and the club to be doing better. So there's this scene in season 2, in episode 2, where Charlie Methven, this kind of very well-to-do English guy, goes into this really hardcore sort of Sunderland supporters club in Saipan, which is it's a pretty salubrious part of town, and you know, he speaks to them in no way kind of patronisingly, just saying, look, this is how it is. We came into this situation where the finances were an absolute shit show. The finance people didn't know where the money was. And the fact was that they would come into the situation at the end of every month where they would just basically send off a check to Ellis Short and he'd write off the debt for the month. So they didn't have any feeling of kind of ownership, of agency over the situation. And the lads have come in and they've tried to, in fairness to them, sort of say that, look, this isn't on you, lads. Like, we all need to be pulling into this together so that we can actually get where we want to be. And I think occasionally you get these kind of odd situations. Oh, and I'm sure you saw it in episode 1 where Charlie's kind of stood in front of his series of bemused employees talking about this business is 100% fucked, like, and then just kind of goes into this tirade. But like, I have no doubt that that's a genuine feeling. Like, if you've any kind of business sense or acumen going into that club, you would just be like, this is madness. How has this been allowed to happen for so long? So yeah, I mean, actually, that's one of the more positive points.
I would say that I'd spent a small bit of time, like few days up there at some point, probably about a decade ago or more. I was actually making a far less heralded documentary about Sunderland and the Irish connections. And like, in terms of the connection with the city and with the fans and all that stuff, like, it's such a cliche. And I don't know if that was the point you were making on, but like, how many of these clubs do you hear, it's such a club and a great connection with the fans? It's unbelievable in Sunderland. Honestly, having spent a lot of time around there at that time and walked the streets and spoken to people who connect with the club and a lot of people who had no connection with it, it was very much hooked around the influence that Niall Quinn was having in Sunderland at that time, obviously having gone through the various gamut of roles that he had there. But make no mistake, when it comes to Sunderland, about the connection, it's the one thing that I feel very comfortable looking at the documentary. That's a very genuine connection there between club and town.
Because that's what my curiosity and my cynicism is, how real this thing is. I just found it very interesting that when the manager is in a room where he would ordinarily be talking about tactics, he is talking about the social status of the class, I should say, of the large swathe of people who come to the stadium and like to watch them play. I just found that very interesting, and clearly, according to what you guys are saying, that's authentic. That's legitimately part of the foundation of the club and has to be a part of every manager that comes in. And my honest expectation was that this is almost set up to be a spectacular fall, because even the PR persona of Sunderland Football Club might actually get eroded as the episodes go on and as the struggle gets a bit tougher for the team, I think.
I think that the single biggest success of this documentary is that actually, when you think about it, there should be so many parallels to the Cristiano Ronaldo documentary, i.e. it was made by the man himself, and obviously the filmmakers here had to have full and utter agreement from the top brass at the club to go ahead and make the thing. And you assume at any point they could have gone in and said, listen, this isn't going the way we want it. But actually, I think the truest success of this is that it actually does feel mostly like a warts and all piece.
Yeah, I'd agree. To be honest, there's one scene in, I think, episode 3 where the whole episode is kind of focused on whether they can beat this attendance record and really show that they've kind of arrived as a club and as an ownership structure. And Charlie Methven's on the touchline and speaking to the corporate communications manager, this lady, Sophie Ashdown, in a way that you wouldn't really speak to anyone in an office environment. He was effing this and effing that right in someone's face. And to be honest with you, in terms of, kind of editorial oversight, if you had any cop on about it and personal kind of, credit, you would probably say, I don't really want that in there because it didn't reflect well on him. But I think in general, actually, what that does show is that how fraught things are. I think one thing you really come away with is an understanding, a better understanding of just how mad you have to be to try and own a football club. Like, it's just, your success and your failure is deemed on, by the slight angle of a ball at the end of a season. And, I'm not giving anything away, but that's becoming clear here as well. It's absolute madness. So for them to carry out this documentary in the way they have is real credit to them, Ryan.
Can I just ask here, and after watching this all, it definitely felt that, from your perspective, it definitely felt that after season 1, the dominant emotion was people laughing at Sunderland. I'm not sure, is that fair or not? Is that the same emotion at the end of season 2?
No, I don't think so, at least not personally for me. Stuart Donald in particular is someone who just seems like a genuinely nice person. Like, he doesn't seem like this kind of, corporate bigwig hotshot coming in just trying to tear out the foundations of the club. He genuinely seems to care. And one of the things actually that isn't covered is how he kind of made his money. And, it's briefly sort of intimated. But he does really seem to care, and he goes and sits in with the fans, which, look, you can argue the toss one way or another, whether that's just a PR stunt, which, for most people it is, but he genuinely seems to give a shit about football, and that's a big thing. And even Charlie Methven as well, look, he has his faults, and he's a bit of a caricature in some ways, but he really does seem to care as well, particularly about the football and the whole kind of knitting together of the organisation. So, no, I think from my point of view, I really wanted them to succeed, and I would be surprised if many others wanted them to fail.
I have to say, I'm fairly fascinated by what's Charlie Methven? Is that his name? What's his role?
Methven, he's an executive director, I believe now is his role at Sunderland, but he's essentially kind of was a journalist and a marketeer, and you can really see that in him, in the kind of initiatives that he's bringing around and trying to get the fans involved, and also trying to really put a rocket up the marketing team and up the general staff within Sunderland. But I mean, his role on that, right? Like, it should be said first of all, for he looks like Paulie out of The Sopranos. One of the first thoughts that I had about him. He's got that sort of that sandpaper sort of foxiness going on around the side of it. It's anyway. So there's that going on. But it felt like, I mean, the rocket up the marketing team. So having watched episode 1 of season 2, I'm totally unsure about this guy, and I'm actually, it's probably the thing that's definitely going to drive me through it. But putting the rocket up the marketing team, I know it's been edited, but like he was saying, some of the stuff he was saying, even the staff that he was sitting in front of, like 4 or 5 people were sort of looking at you, they're going, what's this guy saying? I know,
like
man, honestly.
His biggest thing was about changing the entrance tune at the start of the game. They spent like 15 minutes talking about, like, in terms of the documentary, but 15 minutes on, well, we've always had this tune, but should we go with this other tune? And like him going to various, they've definitely painted him as a little bit of a loon.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, he, in a way, he's easy to caricature, and I'm kind of a little bit conflicted on this because he is absolutely the sort of the kind of joke figure in some ways, particularly with that sort of Tiesto adagio for strings, trying to like bring the stadium and the crowd up. But he does seem to have something about him, and the marketing element that I was talking about actually kind of comes a little bit later in the series, where he sits down the team and really just says, it's basically on you if people are made redundant because you haven't done your jobs to do this. So that doesn't really sit extremely well with anyone. And I think, you talk about Paulie from The Sopranos. I think he's got a real element of, Lisa Simpson's kind of English fiance. Is this kind of like a bit of a, sweat back hair and all this kind of caper. But I think somewhere in there's a reasonably astute businessman. He's just occasionally not really got the kind of patience that you probably need, particularly in this situation where you've got a staff that have just been beaten down over the years and just, sort of exposed to these worst elements of footballing administration.
Or the self-awareness at times. Like, one of the comments that stood out for me from episode 1 was where he says about the owner, well, listen, he'd never accept this, but like, I mean, he knows that I'm the one with the big vision here. Like, it was, the level of self-awareness was pretty lacking, I would think.
Left brain, right brain.
We got to wrap it up. What, in terms of, like, give us your 30-second sell, Kieran, as to, for people who haven't seen this yet, know very much about it, why should they sit down and invest some time in it?
What I would say is, don't waste 30 seconds listening to me talking about Sunderland Till I Die. Go immediately to Netflix and watch Sunderland Till I Die. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's just an absolute Shakespearean tragicomedy working out in front of your very eyes. And I would highly recommend it as a caricature of an Englishman myself, Johnny Methven, something to behold. Yeah, and it's the Titanic going. We all know what happens.
Take a guess. Just Google Sunderland results. Unfortunately, spoil, like if you watch real life football playing out in front of you in a Sunderland season, it's spoiler essential for this documentary.
Right, we have guests arriving. So on that note, we'll let you off. It's OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball with some special guests. I'll speak to you after this.
They spoke about your arm not being down beside your side. I mean, this is not Irish dancing.
OTB Sports Radio.
Basketball would have been my main game.
The brand new sports radio station from Off the Ball.
That's my point. Don't play for us if you're a proud Englishman.
Now broadcasting 24 hours a day. Live on the Go Loud app, Alexa.
You have a whole new world of possibilities.
Google Home, tune in, and offtheball.com/radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
Yeah, it's 8:40 on this Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Delighted to have you along with us this morning. 0879 180 180 if you want to get in touch this morning, or indeed any of the social platforms that you happen to be consuming us on this morning. We're delighted to have you with us and would love to hear from you. So do get in contact with us this morning. Alan Quinlan, I believe, is on the line. Good morning to you, Alan.
Good morning, Adrian. How are you?
All right. How are you getting on?
Sure, not too bad, I suppose. Ups and downs. It's all very strange, but I'm okay, thanks.
It's I know you've been on with the lads a couple of times. The first time we've had a chance to chat since the craziness kicked off a few weeks ago. It's I don't know. I find anyway that you get into. It was very tough initially, and you get into a slight routine, and things become a new norm almost. Are you adapting?
Yeah. Somewhat adapting. I think it's very tough on everyone, I suppose. It's hard to try and get a schedule, and that's probably the key, to try and get into some form of routine. And there's only so much sitting around you can do. I think I said this to the lads the other day. I find it very beneficial to get up, go for cycling, go for a run, get out and about, get some fresh air. So that certainly helps me. But it's pretty unsettling for everyone, no doubt about that. And we've nothing to measure this on before because we've never been in this situation. So it's I think it's hitting everybody differently. My biggest fear for everybody is obviously people are going to be struggling from a financial point of view and worrying about their jobs, and it's just a psychological impact of the whole thing is going to be quite difficult going forward for people, I think.
Yeah, I found that people are far more open to the conversation that, to be fair to you, over the last number of years, you've been very open about. But I find now that people are far more open to that conversation where you're meeting strangers or acquaintances or family or friends or whatever it is, and suddenly the response to how you're getting on is not, I'm fine. There's a little bit more honesty about it, I find now.
Yeah, people are talking a little bit more about it, and that's going to be vitally important going forward. I think we live in a very materialistic world with a lot of rubbish, a lot of false advertising, a lot of celebrity bullshit, and that's all going to change. The world has to change with all the false rubbish that we're being sold and shown, and I think it'll certainly bring people back down to earth and realise the important things in life about, family, friends, people around you, and the simple things in life. And a big part of any sort of mental health stuff that I've spoken about is and certainly for myself, this doesn't apply to everybody, but it's pretty common in experts and people who've experienced mental health difficulties that I've spoken to over the years. John Kirwan is probably the most obvious example, the former All Black legend who suffered a lot with mental health problems throughout his life, and he was a pin-up poster boy in New Zealand and a superstar rugby player. And one of the things he always said to me when I linked up with him and I got to know him very well was about enjoying the simple things in life. Like, it sounds very obvious, and maybe some people may not understand this, and maybe they'll understand it now. The simple things of going for a walk, having a cup of tea, having a nice shower, bath, and kind of being present in those things. And the world is a very, very busy place and has come very, very busy in the last number of years. So many distractions, so much rubbish that we're spoon-fed, if you like. And the simple things in life for me are what we'll need to get back to and understand. Like our parents and their parents before, where they didn't have all the mod cons and the luxuries that we have in the modern day world. I think people will appreciate that side of things more, the simplicity of being able to go for a walk and get out in nature and maybe not looking too far ahead. So it's definitely going to be a hot topic and a hot subject coming out of this. The psychological effect of the whole thing for people, and positive mental health programs and awareness is going to be really, really vital for sports people and for people, in the employment sector and right across the board.
Yeah, I think it helps as well when our audience can hear people like yourself, Quinny, giving articulate voice to it like you have done there. So there are some things that we want to talk to you about in the rugby front this week, which has been almost the exception, and we'd gladly take them. Johnny Sexton was on with the lads yesterday. He was talking about a range of different things. The one that sort of standout one was in relation to the captaincy, obviously, and the agreement with Andy Farrell is that's going to be a year. Some speculation this morning that, James Ryan could be coming in as early as November. Obviously, we don't know where we're at in terms of games. It seems to me to make total sense that agreement will be just for a year initially, and then let's see how we go.
Yeah, and that was it's not any breaking news really, because I think when Johnny Sexton was announced, I think that was stated that look, it's for the Six Nations. Let's see how it goes and see where everyone is at after that, and that was probably the sensible thing to do. It wasn't a long-term appointment that. He's going to be captain for the next number of years. For obvious reasons, the age that Johnny is at, that who knows where he's going to be in 12 months' time. I think he's still in great condition. I think he's still a great player. I think he's a great leader for the team and has been for a number of years. My impression and opinion on the captaincy was after the World Cup, particularly what happened in the World Cup and what happened in 2019, was that maybe it was time to go for someone young and that we could bring right through to the next World Cup. But there's a flip side to that as well, Adrian, because maybe we talk a lot about World Cups, and because of we've never been past that quarter final, and we put a huge emphasis on it, and maybe Andy Farrell is just having the here and now approach and take each tournament as it comes and on its own merits. And it's not vital that you have a captain. You build teams around them, which sometimes sports people say is vital. It's not vital. I think you want to try and create a lot of leaders in the team, and this is an opportunity for not just for James Ryan possibly to grow in his leadership role, but for a number of other players as well. And in 4 years' time, you could see someone like Ronan Kelleher being the captain of Ireland, Jordan Larmour, these guys. Dan Levy could come into contention. There's lots of players that possibly could step up to that mantle. The most obvious one now and the most consistent player, probably aside from Johnny Sexton, in the forwards, and I always like a forward being captain, is James Ryan, and I think he has all the credibility and the experience of being captain and all the underage teams he's played on. But look, maybe it was the decision was based on keeping the pressure off him for a little while. So Johnny Sexton obviously has a lot of experience, and he's a lot of natural leadership that he uses in games anyway, and he's used his experience, and he's been an incredible player for Ireland. I still think it can be a very important part of who knows if it's the long term, the short term anyway, for definite. And So who knows what's going to happen in November? I think they'll discuss it on its merits then. If they take the next block of November and leave Johnny Sexton captain for that, who knows? I don't know.
Eddie Jones, obviously the other one, he signed a new contract, Quinny, 2023 Rugby World Cup, and would be the longest ever serving England head coach. He's obviously 2 Six Nations wins. He's got that Rugby World Cup final under his belt as well. And it doesn't seem like he's doing a Mourinho in that his message is burning out in any way. He still seems to be getting through there.
Yeah, you sense that they turned the corner with that World Cup, really, a major corner. I know they all, like England always have very good players, and I think, you go back to 2015 when at the World Cup when they had a star-studded team and didn't get out of the group, and it was an absolute disaster for them, given the strength, player numbers, all that kind of stuff. There was a lot said about that. I think since Jones has taken over, he's had spurts of really dominance and then disappointment, and 2018 was a dreadful year for them, not just with the Six Nations. I think in South Africa losing the Test series there as well. So it's but he rebuilt in 2019, and there's a real sense that what happened after that World Cup, that the players like him, they all seem to kind of back him publicly, and things change very quickly in sport, but based on and given what happened in and probably for himself personally, I think getting so close, maybe if he won that World Cup with England in November, that he may not have got involved in the extension, but I think he sees a real opportunity to go and win the World Cup in 2023 in France. And look, England are always going to be knocking on the door come World Cup tournaments because of their strength and power, but I think he just feels that there's a little bit unfinished business there, and it is strange to see someone stay that long, particularly for England, because they've probably in recent times, Clive Woodward is probably the longest one they had in my memory, but he's done a good job, and I think the players like him, so it's not a major surprise. It's probably an issue for us and all sorts of stuff that he's going to say pre and post matches. I think the most disappointing one in recent weeks for me was the one around the Manitou Lange tackle on George North, and the way, you just love for him to come out and say what, I know it's difficult when you're emotional after a game, but condemning the referee and saying the tackle was perfect and all this kind of stuff sends out the wrong kind of message. So I think they will. The English Rugby Union had to come out and apologise basically to World Rugby for that, around the comments of the safety and the emphasis that's put on safety and the message that are sent out, not just from current players but from former players like myself, anyone who's speaking about the game. It's important that we always try and promote the safety in the game, because it is very physical, and you would have loved to have seen Eddie Jones come out and say, look, I'm pissed off, I'm not happy, I think some referee decision went against us. I think it was a yellow card, but I can understand that there was contact in the head area, and we've got to protect the players, and we've got to accept it. But he came out and said the opposite and criticising the referee, and it is the kind of message we send out, and I think it's an important part of rugby union. The messages come out of the game, because we want to try and make the game as safe as possible, and give parents the reassurance that the top professionals are taking player welfare, and coaches are taking it very, very seriously.
You've picked your World 15, your piece in the Irish Independent this week. You've picked your current World 15 inform, best players, whatever you want to shape it up, and not an Irish shirt in sight, Quinny.
No, it was last Saturday I picked it, and we're kind of struggling to get stuff to write about at the moment, and I look back at it. In 2018, there was 4 Irish players on the World 15. After Ireland having a wonderful year, Conor Murray, Johnny Sexton, Peter O'Mahony, and Tadhg Furlong were in there. And I suppose based on what we've seen in 2019, and maybe the start of Ireland obviously started, there was optimism after Scotland and Wales, and then, what happened in Twickenham really would have hampered, anybody selecting a World 15 and picking Irish players or Welsh players to because obviously it changes very, very quickly. So my World 15 is pretty dominated by New Zealand, England and South African players. One Scottish player and one Australian player in there, and the rest are South Africans, New Zealanders and English.
Talk to us about your back row. Don't have a huge amount of time, but talk to us about your back row. Vunipola, Hooper, Pocock, none of them make the grade. You've gone for Peter Steph du Toit, Tom Curry and Ardy Savea. Yeah, well, I think, look, Curry was incredible at the World Cup. I think he's sensational. He's been moved around the back row, playing at number 8. He started off as a 7 for England, then moved to 6 because of Underhill at the World Cup. And I just think he's a wonderful player, and he'd come into anyone's thoughts. I suppose Hooper and Pocock, they're brilliant players in their own right, but given England getting to a World Cup final and how dominant Curry was throughout that, I'd pick him as a 7. Peter Steph du Toit was World Rugby Player of the Year. He has to go into a team, and then I went for Ardy Savea because I thought even in just the way he played, even against England for New Zealand when they were getting well beaten, I just thought he was sensational. He was limping around the field for a lot of the game, and I'm a massive fan of his. He can play 6, 7 or 8 as well. So Billy Vunipola probably not playing in the start of the Six Nations kind of rules him out. But again, it's a debate, Adrian. So many wonderful back row players throughout the world who could come into consideration. But they're the 3 I went for: Savea, Steph du Toit and Curry. Yeah, and no room for Alan Jones was my big shock when I would have thought he's a player that speaks to a lot of things about you. Yeah, he's a good player, an excellent player, wonderful career, and I just don't think he's performed in the Six Nations, and I kind of it's hypocritical in some senses that some of like Savea hasn't played since the World Cup, so you take that into consideration. But Wales, have struggled in the Six Nations, and Itoje has been the standout player for me for England. He's an incredible player. He's incredibly annoying probably to play against, and Eben Etzebeth is the other one. He was wonderful for South Africa and it started really well for Toulon and France as well. So again, you're splitting hairs with lots of these players, and there was something I just did last week based on what we saw at the World Cup and what we've seen at the start of this year. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, look after yourself. We'll chat to you again next week. Take it easy. Cheers. Thanks, Adrian. Thanks a lot, Alan Quinlan. You can check out that full piece up on the Irish Independent website. I'm sure we'll be having our own website as well at some point soon. It's 8:56 on this Friday morning. Up next, Olympic-hopeful Clare Cryan is going to join on for today's Off the Couch. You may have come across a new show from us here. Meanwhile, on OTB, the Classic Game Club. It's like a book club, but where you look back on classic matches or moments in sport, and we've plenty in the can already. A lovely playlist made for you up on the YouTube channel where you can find our first 12 episodes of the Classic Game Club. Covers things like Dublin Kerry in 2013, the United 4-2 win at Arsenal, that tunnel match, probably better known for the Grand Slam game between Ireland and Wales, the Valentine's Day massacre, Bod's hat-trick in Paris, as Tip Kilkenny in the 2014, the Hawkeye match, of course, an Old Firm classic from 2000, and Liverpool against Forest, that thumping in 1988. So plenty more. And last night, Vinnie Perth and David Myler joined Nathan to chat through Ireland-Italy from World Cup 94. Take a look.
That's probably one of the big differences in the last quarter of a century, is just the sheer level of analysis, both in terms of the media and I think from people within the game, David, so USA 94, you think of that performance, Ray Houghton's goal and Paul McGrath was unbelievable. And we sort of all leave it at that. And we're happy with that. And we're happy with the memories. Whereas now, every victory, and you played in some of the big victories over the last few years, like a 1-0 win isn't enough. We need to dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the performance until we can pick it apart into absolutely nothing, rather than probably, again, a more innocent time where we just enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. Like even as we're doing this, myself and people watched the game last night, and we'll be looking at different. It's almost as if you're analysing faults. You're looking for the problems to try and solve them. Even though, like the way Ireland set up, whether or not, look, I don't know how they performed in training. Did they work on tactics? Obviously, you're saying there, Nathan, they didn't. But they knew what they were doing. Every player to a T knew what they were doing. They were organised. They were disciplined. Anytime, like, even if you look at the ball went back to, to Paddy Power, the whole team pushed up. Like, Houghton came in off the wing. Then at times Sheridan pushed forward to join Tommy Coyne. They knew what they were doing. So it's almost like they must have done some tactical work or must have had conversations. It can't be just down to, well, we're going to go along. Somebody join in. Like, oh, well, he's gone. I'll wait. I'll go the next time. They had to have done it. And it probably is a fault that we have now is we're looking at games and we're trying to overanalyze everything that we're looking at. Well, he could have passed it here. He could have passed it there. His positioning's wrong. There would have been, like, even looking back at the game, there's so many different faults where players could have played forward, but they decided to go back, etc., etc. But on the overall basis of the 90-minute performance, they did everything perfectly. And that's why, like, if you look at it and you watch it back now, they deserved to win that game. They had great chances to even go 2-0.
I find it really interesting because, especially being in the middle of the game at the moment in terms of coaching, that everything is overanalyzed. So, for example, Irwin, who, people talk about Dennis Irwin and, ex-players, and I even heard Danny Higginbotham during the week speak about him and, how he was the best he's ever seen other than Cole and different bits and pieces. But Irwin kicked the ball back to them, particularly early in the game, so many and misplaced passes. And if that game was taking place in the modern world, you would have Twitter gone absolutely bananas at him 2 minutes into the game, kicking the ball away, going over the end line. And it is overanalyzed now. We don't tend to just sit back and enjoy games. And, or there might have been a gif created about Irwin kicking the ball out of play, within 5 minutes of the start. So it does show you that we've gone to the stage where we're probably not actually enjoying games anymore. We're sitting there, on social media. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the world. It's gone so much. It's overanalyzing every single pass and not just enjoying the game.
Yeah, great stuff there last night from Vinnie Perth and David Myler. They were watching Italy against Ireland in the 1994 World Cup. That's the latest Classic Game Club, as Adrian said a moment ago. The full playlist of it is available now on youtube.com/off the ball. Right, delighted to say that Ireland diver Claire Cryan is today's instructor for Off the Couch. Off the Couch is our lunchtime series of fitness videos. If you want to get up and moving inside the four walls of your house, make sure to tune in this lunchtime. Delighted to say as well that Claire joins us live now on OTB AM. Claire, you're very welcome to the show. How are you getting on?
Hi, good morning, Aaron. Yeah, I'm all good, thank you.
Good stuff. How have the last few weeks been for you in terms of the challenges you faced with social distancing and staying indoors for the most part?
Yeah, it's been difficult adjusting to working out at home, but I think I've got into a routine now, so all good.
Yeah, your social media account has definitely, I think you've been posting videos of your workout routines over the last couple of weeks. Like, there is no substitute as a diver for the actual process of diving. So how much of a challenge has that been for you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely missing the water, but there's nothing we can do about that. So other little bits, weaknesses I can work on, enjoying different sort of training. So you just got to make the most of what you can.
What is the different sort of training?
The difference, there's a lot for where the season should be. There's a lot more fitness going on at the moment. So that would normally happen at the start of the season. So we've almost gone back to pre-season again.
Because right now you should be limbering up for final qualifications for Tokyo, and obviously that is out the window until next year. It's interesting actually that you say that, because that is what Johnny Sexton was saying yesterday on the show, that he kind of feels like he's in a pre-season as a rugby player at the moment. Clearly the same way as a diver, where you were supposed to be peaking right now, and then all of a sudden, I don't know where you were you 75%, 80% towards your peak, and all of a sudden you've got to shelve that because next year isn't too far away in the lifespan of an athlete.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely a weird adjustment, but also everyone's in the same position. Every athlete is doing the same thing. So you've just got to get on with it, knuckle down.
Absolutely. In a weird way, is it important to not think about how much you're missing the water or not think about diving at this point? Because as you say, all of your competitors and all of your future competitors hopefully are in the same position. They don't have access to their diving board. They don't have access to the water. And actually thinking about what you're missing is something that might just drive you mad at the moment.
Yeah, I guess it's not thinking about what you're missing, but what you can control. So a lot of the movements that we do in diving, we can do in drills. So just on the floor practicing your entry grab and visualizing a lot. So it's important to keep the skills and the movement patterns going, but without the water and the diving boards.
How much instruction then comes in from your coaches? Is it a situation where they're instructing you what to do, or is it kind of a bit more hands-off where you're able to come up with your own routine and how you want to spend your days?
Yeah, I think at first through this shutdown, then while our coach was finding his feet and the structure and everything, I did a lot of stuff myself, but now we're into the third week, I think, for us. We've got a pretty good structure. He's sending us through workouts twice a day, and we're making sure we're covering all aspects of the training.
Right, okay. Is there any part of the training that you're finding particularly challenging, or is it basically based on things that you'd be used to doing in Dublin anyway when you're fully up and running and training?
Yeah, it's mainly stuff that we would be doing, but maybe slightly more conditioning because we've not got to worry about being able to dive afterwards. So we can almost go a little bit harder with some of the conditioning and a lot more running. I'm not used to running, but we can go out once a day, so I'm trying to make the most of that.
All right, okay. Where were you when you found out the news that the Olympics was going to be cancelled, and what were your emotions at the time? I presume it was a gradual build-up of things, because by the time the cancellation or the postponement news came through, it was an inevitability at that point, because like we had Ollie Dingley in studio a few weeks ago before things got to the level that they were at now, and he was obviously in that limbo, which I'm sure you were existing in as well, about will this next qualifying tournament in June, I think it was, will go ahead or won't it, and what exactly will happen. I presume there was almost a bit of a relief that was taken out of your hands and that there was some sort of official statement that there will be no further competition.
Yeah, it was difficult because they seemed to make the call quite late. So I think we all knew it was building up to it, but we were at a competition in February and the Chinese team didn't attend because of Corona. So that was almost the start of thinking, what's going to happen this year? It's crazy. So I think I knew it was coming. It was just when you had to keep presuming that the competitions were going ahead until they said something. So yeah, it was training as best you can and focusing on a lot more drills and visualization because we still had competitions to do, but luckily they've been called off, so that part of training can take a little bit of a step back.
You've got a degree in sports science, Claire, if I'm not mistaken. Like, are you seeing a lot of what you've been learning over the last couple of years all of a sudden crystallize into practical things you need to be implementing on yourself over the last couple of weeks?
I guess a little bit, but I think I've been diving long enough that I just know that sort of training, but I suppose a little bit more thought on other systems that we maybe don't use in diving, so a bit more CV. We don't do much of that, so I guess there's little bits of elements that have helped to have that knowledge beforehand.
Right, let's talk about Off the Couch. This lunchtime, you're going to be releasing a video for Off the Ball. What are we expecting? What can the viewers and listeners expect to be put through? Are they going to be put through their paces in a tough manner this Friday afternoon, Claire?
Yeah, I think it is a pretty tough workout, but it's only quick. It's about 20 minutes. And all you need is a skipping rope, which I'm sure most people have one lying around somewhere. So a skipping rope and maybe a towel to rest on. Yeah, it's tough. I was definitely out of breath doing it, but I think it'll be good fun.
Right, so we just have a bit of the clip on screen at the moment. Are they double jumps, as in you're jumping over the rope twice?
Yeah, I'm not
so good. And then you're going to a plank?
Yeah.
That's
so
pretty tough.
Yeah, you only do the double skips or high knee running for 20 seconds, so it's a short burst, so not too bad.
Right, okay, and then into a plank position, it looks like.
Yeah, a plank for a minute and then a minute complete rest.
Okay, and then repeat?
And then go again.
And you go again. Okay, so it's going to be a good workout. Anybody with a skipping rope at home. That's fantastic, Claire. Listen, it's been great chatting to you. We'll make sure to catch your video later on. It's going to be across all Off the Ball social channels. And great chatting to you, as I say. Claire, look after yourself over the next couple of weeks. We look forward to seeing you back on the diving board soon.
Thanks, yeah. See you soon. Bye.
Claire Cryan there on the line, an Ireland diver, of course. The Olympics called off and subsequently all the qualifications called off as well this summer. That is very much us at 8 minutes past 9 this morning, but we still, of course, have the crappy quiz yet to come. If you've missed anything, you can catch the podcast back. It's fully time-stamped and you can scroll through wherever you want to get to. Just a heads up that Golf Weekly is coming up immediately after OTB AM this morning as Joe, Nathan, Fionn and Peter Lowry are joined for an hour by Paul McGinley. You can watch that live straight after OTB AM this morning at 9:30. As I say, not finished for the morning just yet on OTB AM because it's the big one. It's the Saipan quiz 2002 is going to be the focus with Adrian, Tommy and Nathan for the crappy quiz right after this.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Paddy Power Half Hour, exclusive to OTB Sports Radio.
And I know the ball into him wasn't great, but he was getting the ball in his chest, and the touch was taking him 5 yards back into the centre of midfield where the pressure was. So it was doing the opposite of what we need as a number 10, and Jack Byrne offers that. But again, it is a big step up to international football.
A 30-minute no-nonsense preview of the weekend's Premier League action.
I think they'll do well in the Champions League. They'll get to the knockout stages, and if they get a kind of B-level team, not one of the really big guns, they could get to a quarter-final, and you never know.
The Paddy Power Half Hour, every Friday from 12 midday, only on OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me!
September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on a multitude of Irish platforms and indeed Irish radio. It is the scintillating, it is the stupefying, it is the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we put three of Team Off the Ball up against each other in a quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome tonight's contestants. Our first contestant today is pretty annoyed that he's isolating during his birthday, which is of course today. He had budgeted for the free cake that would have inevitably been bought for him in the office, and he was certainly budgeting on the subsequent happy birthday messages he would have received in the offices. Instead, he has asked me to tell all OTB viewers and listeners to get in touch with him and wish him a happy birthday. It ain't easy being 27 and officially in his late 20s. Give it up for Tommy Rooney.
Hi folks. Look, amongst all the change in the world, I'm happy to say that despite working on Off the Ball 7 years, this year my birthday is no different. I still didn't get a cake.
Oof. Wow. Happy birthday, Tommy.
In fairness, I usually take the day off. Thanks, lads. Thanks.
Why, you usually don't have cakes at the championship or something, is it? But
yeah, but they moved championship this year in May to August, and that went well.
Well,
are you like a child, Tommy, that who doesn't get homework on the day of their birthday, that you don't work the day of your birthday?
Nah, when you listen, I just think I think you should enjoy your birthday. I really do. I don't think you should take the day off if it's needless, but if you have something planned, work away.
Happy birthday, Tommy.
Thanks,
big
lads.
27. There's a degree of maturity that really should come with, that has been absent for the last 27 years, to be fair. So
let's face it. Happy birthday, Tommy, indeed.
Any hints or any tips, Adrian, on how I can bring that maturity into my life? How many years have you been mature now?
Just those long days of long reflection, I'd say, Tommy, would be the main thing that you need. Just a bit of downtime, stare at the wall for a while. You're out on the West Coast at the minute. As long as it's within 2 kilometres, get yourself to it get yourself in touch with the sea and nature. And long reflection, Tommy, I'd say, the main thing for you.
That's the plan.
I got engaged when I was 28, Tommy.
Wow.
I mean, I think that's a different story altogether.
Just throwing it out there.
Good stencil, actually. Do you want to have that conversation now, or will we leave it till off air, the sort of advice for 28-year-olds, people getting engaged?
Just saying, it can work, Tommy.
Why the relative rush at that age? What was the reason?
Sorry, I didn't. I got married when I was 28. No, that makes sense.
I suppose different generations.
That makes
Come back
sense.
to this.
How long-
Yeah, we will come back to this.
No.
Let's move on.
It's my 10-year wedding anniversary next week, so I should remember these things.
So is that correct then? You did get married when you were 28?
I did, yeah. Wow. I was very young.
Your first wedding anniversary that doesn't clash with the Masters. Congratulations! And our next contestant, spent Wednesday putting up with the same WhatsApp joke again and again and again. Yes, he gets it. It was April Fool's Day, and all you people sending on that photoshopped image of Aidan O'Shea holding Sam Maguire are absolutely hilarious. Give it up for the Beast of Ballyhonus, Nathan Nate Dog Murphy.
Oh, I'll tell you, there was some fun and frolics in this house yesterday with April Fool's Day. We had the two young lads melted a load of chocolate in the baby's nappy, and while my wife was on the phone to her mother, in the background they're eating what looks like shit out of the baby's nappy. And they also, while we were on one of our meetings yesterday, they arrived in with a packet of sweets and said, "Do you want some sweets?" And I said, "Of course I'll have some sweets." And they had wrapped up the sweets. What were sweets in little silver were actually now grapes.
Oh, wow. They're impressive kids. Impressive kids.
Well, I missed the part there. What was the stuff in the nappy? What was it actually?
Chocolate. Melted chocolate.
Oh, lovely. Did
Which
they eat it?
They did actually eat it then.
Lovely. Why not?
Did their mother fall for it?
My mother-in-law, I think, did fall for it, yes.
Okay. There you go. Right, our final contestant today has been sent a question from Barry on YouTube. Did Adrian Barry buy that piece of art behind him, or did it come free with the gaff? Bad news for Barry is that he's got a different piece of art behind him today. He said, the latter, I hope. Give it up for Adrian Barry. What's the answer to Barry's question, Adrian Barry?
Neither piece came free with the gaff. So you want more? The one that you'd normally be looking at, which is the rusty old petrol pump from the desert in southern America somewhere, was actually brought back from the south of France.
And the one behind you now?
Whatever. And the one behind me I bought several years ago as probably the only art investment I've ever made. Can I just flag up as well that...
pricey? Was it pricey?
Not extortionate, Tommy. Not extortionate. I just need to tell you that, and the viewers and listeners, that I'm doing some live parenting here. So every now and then, when I go on mute and you can see me chatting away, I'm just making sure that the dinosaurs are still on and everybody's still happy.
Keep those dinosaurs ticking along, absolutely. So you finally cleared up that you are indeed doing a bit of parenting at home this weekend.
Well, you don't know. I could be just making that up as well. So.
That is true. That would also be kind of weird, but I'd kind of respect you for that. The format of this week's Crappy Quiz will be questions on the year 2002 for 4 rounds. Then we're going to quiz you on any year for the Fun and Free Magic Number round, and also the slip inside of trivia, the rapid fire round. You've got your pens at the ready, as Adrian.
Question.
Yeah, go for it.
So I had forgotten that everybody knows we're now doing a sequence of years. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You were both aware of that, were you?
What?
I presume it's been changed after I flagged it in the last quiz.
Well, is it 1999 or 2002?
No, we did 99.
But wait, we're talking going back to 98.
We don't know where he's going to go.
There's never been any talk about
it. Okay. I was just worried that everybody knew what was happening apart from me, and you've all briefed up on various bits, but
I'm sure the quizmaster is wary of such.
How many years? We're all busy during the week. Nobody has time to be doing any studying.
Podcast the Crappy Quiz on offtheball.com or on the Go Loud app. Give us 5 out of 5, even if that doesn't represent your actual opinion. And please send any questions you have via Twitter. Round 1, the boring Saipan questions round. Never multiple choice. Question 1 for you, Tommy. Saipan is a territory that belongs to which country?
I'm actually surprised that you've gone with 2002.
Like
South Korea.
Acting. South Korea? No, it's not South Korea. It's the United States of America.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Commonwealth of the USA.
Oh, my God.
The North Mariana Islands. Question 1 for you, Nathan. Roy Keane changed his mind about going home in Saipan after his row with Paddy Power and Alan Kelly initially. He obviously later decided to reverse that decision again. The deadline to call a new player up had passed in the interim, so Mick McCarthy had basically called a player up to tell them that they were in before ringing them back to tell them they were out because Roy had decided to stay for a while. Can you name this player?
What?
Colin Healy.
Correct.
You were thinking Stephen Reid, Tommy.
What did I do to annoy you?
Still, what do we? So would you have gone for Colin Healy as well?
I was waiting for.
That's like an incredibly easy answer.
Yeah, just like the geography of Saipan, fairly
I
straightforward.
was waiting for name the entire 23-man squad.
Yeah, we don't have time. These are all introductory Saipan questions. They're all very easy. Adrian, name the FAI president at the time who was on the ground in Saipan.
Was it Fran Rooney?
It was not Fran Rooney.
Was it Brendan Menton?
It was not Brendan Menton.
Milo Corcoran?
Milo Corcoran, indeed.
Oh, Milo.
Round 2. Nathan, the only person who scored there. Round 2, the Saipan quotes round. There has been plenty, possibly too much, written and spoken about Saipan in the intervening 18 years. In this round, I will read you out a quote. All you got to do is answer a question about the quote. Tommy, this is a fill-in-the-blank question. Saipan was very much to do with Roy Keane's views on professionalism in the camp well before they ever got to the island. In his first book, Roy Keane spoke about the dietary options before that first Holland game in qualifying. He famously says that he saw some of the lads sitting at a table eating blank sandwiches. I couldn't believe it. We discussed diet. What is the missing word?
Sausage.
No, it's not sausage sandwiches. Anyone?
Chips.
No. Cheese sandwich. Cheese sandwiches was the thing that pissed Roy Keane off on that particular occasion.
I don't blame him. I'd far rather a sausage sandwich than a cheese sandwich.
Yeah, but it could be possibly better for you depending on how you're cooking it as well. Question 2 for you, Nathan. Fill in the blank question as well. Shield any young ears now, by the way, for anybody watching or listening to this. So, Roy and Mick's most famous row involved this spectacular rant from Roy. And again, cover up those ears. Mick, you're a liar. You're a fucking wanker. I didn't rate you as a player. I don't rate you as a manager. And I don't rate you as a person. You're a fucking wanker and you can stick your World Cup up your arse. The only reason I have had any dealings with you is that somehow you're the manager of my country. You can stick it up your blank. What is the missing word?
It's just one word, is it?
Just one word.
See, I'm tempted to say hole. You can stick it up your...
What other option do you have?
Either arse or hole. Arse hole. You can stick it up your...
Like the kid.
Do you want the full quote? Do you want the full quote again?
Arse.
It's not arse. Anyone?
It was something a bit more obscure. It was like a colloquialism that I can't quite remember.
Adrian's on the right track here. It's not that it's more obscure, it's just more ridiculous. It's clearly something that came as a method of anger and all sense went out the window. The only reason I've had any dealings with you is that you are somehow the manager of my country. You can stick it up your bollocks.
Stick it up your bollocks. Oh, quite the proposition.
Wow.
Adrian, who said the following? How do you measure professionalism? By how much pasta you eat, bleep tests, abstinence, the ability to get on with it no matter what the circumstances, walking out in your team before the greatest games of their lives? We all take responsibility for ourselves. Roy left us in Saipan, not the other way around. And he punished himself more than any of us by not coming back. Who said that?
How many footballers know the word abstinence is probably the first.
Good train of logic.
Can you give it to me again?
How do you measure professionalism? By how much pasta you eat, bleep tests, abstinence, the ability to get on with it no matter what the circumstances, walking out on your team before the greatest game of their lives? We all take responsibility for ourselves. Roy left us in Saipan, not the other way around. And he punished himself more than any of us by not coming back.
I'm going to take the host reference as meaning it has to be somebody within the camp, because I was had a slight leaning to somebody else.
Why, who did you think it was?
Well, I have a slight leaning to John Delaney, but that's not my answer. As he scans own face for some modicum of reaction. I'm going to go with Niall Quinn.
Correct.
Get in.
Good answer. Niall Quinn indeed.
Well, that yeah.
Good
answer
was probably the giveaway, in fairness. Round 3, the fact that Niall Quinn would be able to use that word. Round 3 is the actual 2002 World Cup round. Of secondary importance in 2002 was the World Cup that took place shortly after the Saipan saga. Here's a few questions on what happened on the pitch. Tommy, in which city did Robbie Keane score his injury time equaliser against Germany?
I was bloody 9. Nagasaki.
No. Ibaraki, correct. Question 3 for you, Nathan. Ronaldinho lobbed Saipan from an impressive distance in the 2002 quarterfinals, but who had put England 1-0 up in that game?
Oh, this is frustrating because...
Just
What?
Do you want me to say the bit that Ronaldinho lobbed Saipan from an impressive distance in the 2002 quarterfinals, but who had put England 1-0 up in that game? Bit again.
Yeah, I see what you've done there. I fell asleep during this game because I'd stayed up all night and it was on first thing in the morning, and I woke up and the match was over, which was very depressing. My internet gone, or am I still working here?
You're still very much working.
Okay, so I'm just talking to myself. Who scored for England? Oh, the 1-0 up against Brazil. Beckham, was it? Emil Heskey?
No, his teammate, Michael Owen.
Ah, shit, I was going to go for Michael Owen.
I was thinking it was Owen, but like you'd never actually hear the end of it if an Englishman scored against Brazil, right? Have we heard much about that goal?
Well, no, because they didn't win, but
it doesn't really matter that they didn't win. Like, they scored in the World Cup against Brazil.
Should have won that game, actually. Rivaldo, the other goal scorer for Brazil on the occasion. Adrian.
I'm getting much tougher questions here.
You sure you're 27 now, Tommy? Adrian, who did Brazil beat in the 2002 World Cup semi-final?
Oh, my God.
Gonna say Spain.
No. Turkey, correct. Yeah. So it's 1 point for Adrian, 1 point for Nathan, nothing for Tommy so far after 3 rounds. Round 4, the other stuff that's not sports that happened in 2002 round. You know how this works. We ask you a question about your wider knowledge relating to the year 2002. A fan's favourite. Question 4 for you, Tommy. In the 2002 version of Spider-Man, who plays the Green Goblin?
Oh, my gosh. This is bad. Green Goblin 2002. That's such an obscure question.
It's not really. Everybody was getting DVD players around this time, and everybody got Spider-Man for free.
Green Goblin. Who's the bad guy?
Gonna need an answer, Tommy.
Oh.
TikTok.
Let me. Who's the bad guy? Javier Bardem.
No. Anyway, that would be a far better cast.
Good answer.
Anyone else?
William Dafoe?
Correct. Nathan, 2002 was a general election year in Ireland. Who was Taoiseach thereafter?
Mary Harney?
Correct. That's the easiest. Probably the easiest question in the entire quiz. Adrian, I don't know why. I don't even know how I managed to let that slip through the cracks. Adrian, which former Soviet leader received the freedom of Dublin City in 2002?
Gorbachev?
Correct. Adrian, you're up to 2 points. Nathan, you're up to 2 points. Tommy, you're on 0. You need to make some waves in this round. Round 5 is a fun-free magic number round.
Hold up.
As Nathan is going for a pen, contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to state that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So listener Paul Fitzsimons has been in touch via email to give us this edition of the numbers round, and he has based it on the 2002 theme. So, if you don't mind, lads, give us the following number. The number of tries scored by Ireland in the 2002 Six Nations Rugby Tournament, plus the number of goals scored by Ireland in the 2002 FIFA World Cup Finals Tournament, plus the number of points scored by Kerry in the 2002 All-Ireland football final, plus the number of points scored by Clare in the 2002 hurling final. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beats. So, to go through those again, I'm going to need the number of tries Ireland scored in the 2002 Six Nations, the number of goals scored by Ireland at the 2002 World Cup, the number of points scored by Kerry in the 2002 football final, and then in the 2002 All-Ireland hurling final, how many points did Clare score?
I've got to take a chance here, don't I?
As time is up. Pens down. All right. Tommy to the screen, 36. Adrian, 51. Nathan, 35. Adrian gets the 2 points. 55 is the correct answer.
Get in.
So,
get in.
Nathan, you went for 31, was it?
35.
35. And Tommy, what did you go for?
36, so I get 1 point.
You went for 36, yeah, so you got 1 point. Adrian gets
Happy
2
birthday
points,
to me.
Nathan gets nothing. So let's go through those. The number of tries scored by Ireland in the 2002 Six Nations.
8.
16.
5. For God's sake.
16. Jesus.
The number of goals scored by Ireland in the 2002 World Cup.
6.
6. The number of points scored by Kerry in the 2002 football final was 14. And the number of points scored by Clare in the 2002 All-Ireland hurling final was 19. It was a tough numbers round. And thanks to Paul Fitzsimons for getting in touch to send those in. So to go through the
Thanks to
overall
me
scores.
for acing it.
Yeah, it's Adrian on 4 points at the moment. Nathan's on 2 points. Tommy's on 1 point. As we enter the final, our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Conor Murrays from the Bill Murrays. It's the no theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. There will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start with the person with the highest number of points. That is you, Adrian. Then on to the person in second, which is you, Nathan. And then on to the person in last. That is the birthday boy, Tommy. If you get a question correct, I'll ask you another question and keep asking you questions until you get one wrong. And then once you get a question wrong, I'll move on to the next person. And your incorrect answer also means a deduction of 1 point. Adrian Barry.
Don't bottle it, Barry. Don't bottle it.
Are you ready?
Reigning champ on. Bring it on.
Come on, Adrian.
He can't handle it. He can't handle it.
You each get a question wrong, I'm back in it.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Which RTE journalist did Roy Keane do an interview with after he returned home from Saipan?
Tommy Gorman.
Correct. Name the Southampton manager now.
Ralph Hudson-Hoodle.
Correct. Name the hit musical based on Saipan that toured the country successfully.
Kino.
Correct. In what year did Donegal last win in All-Ireland?
Time.
2012. Nathan, what age is Lionel Messi?
32.
Correct. What is the name of the GEA Park in Omagh?
Time.
Park Kessler.
No, Healy Park. Tommy, who did Donegal beat in last year's Ulster final?
Rome.
No, Cavan. In what year did Armagh last win the All-Ireland Football Championship, Nathan? Or Adrian?
2010.
No, it doesn't matter. 2002, but it doesn't matter. You've won it. You finish on 5 points. Nathan, you finish on 1 point. Tommy, you finish on 0 points. Adrian Barry, 2 Fridays in a row. What do you have to say for yourself?
That he didn't actually win that. He got the second question wrong.
This is rigged.
He said
Ralph Husenhattel.
Hasenhüttl, yeah, that's Hasenhüttl. That's...
No, you said Husenhattel. His name is Ralph Hasenhüttl.
I gave the full name, and that's all that matters. Give me
I got the name wrong.
What I have to say
who's the Liverpool manager?
What I have to say, Owen, is that, to be honest with you, it's all becoming a bit easy. Like, you get all the jeers there before the round starts, trying to, like, shoulder me off the ball or whatever, but waste of time at this stage. I'm just, champ.
There's a bit of a quantum leap required from everybody else to catch up with Adrian Barry, the champ.
Well, not really. Maybe if you actually stick to the questions.
Maybe even out the questions. Maybe they're a bit fairer.
But just a second. So, how many points did you finish up on?
No, but you would have been back one.
Just answer the question.
So that's
do something that you haven't done for the last half hour. Answer the question.
That is totally irrelevant because you had got one right, so you would have moved on at that stage to 5. You would have been back to 4, and I would have had those straightforward questions like, "What's the name of the boring thing from Saipan?"
Can I just say one thing?
Hasenhüttl.
Nathan, you can take your complaints and shove them up your bollocks. That is it. That is the crappy quiz done for today, lads. Thanks a million. Tommy, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tommy.
Adrian, congratulations.
Happy birthday, Tommy.
Nathan, we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, lads.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.